Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Nevada. My name is Chris Picars. My pronouns are he, his, him, and I'm grateful to be serving as your worship associate today. I wish to respectfully acknowledge the Washoe, Shoshone, and Paiute peoples who stewarded this land on which we're gathered throughout uncounted generations. Our service theme for October is Heritage. UUFNN has been a part of Reno for 65 years, and throughout that time, the heritage we have created has been an ongoing stream of compassion, acceptance, welcome, and community. If you are a first-time or newish visitor, you have found a place where you can be your full and authentic self, a place where you can put down roots and flourish, surrounded not by an adherence to a particular dogma or religious text, but by our common humanity and a desire to help one another achieve lives of purpose and meaning, regardless of your age, ethnicity, sexual or gender identity, religious beliefs, or citizenship status. We truly welcome all, and together we seek to grow in love, faith, justice, and joy. If you are joining us virtually or watching a recording of this service, know that you too are a member of this community and are welcome in this space. Hopefully you can feel our affection and love for you bouncing about in the ether. If you'd like to lift up a joy or share a sorrow, you'll find a form in a seat back near you or at the back of the room where there's a candle on a pedestal. Please fill out your joy or sorrow and bring it up to me during our time of greeting. If you're watching live on Zoom, please share your joys and sorrows in the chat window. If you'd like to learn more about Unitarian Universalism, please see myself, talk to one of our greeters, or check out a book from our library. If you want to know about the weekly events here at UUFNN, sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can fill out a contact card here in the building or sign up on our website at uufnn.org. We invite you to join us next week for Faith in Actions Nevada's We Will Vote Candidate Forum on Friday, October 11th from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at Bethel AME Church, located at 2655 Rock Boulevard in Sparks, Nevada. Please RSVP using the QR codes on the flyers that you'll find just outside these doors in the gathering room. At this forum, you'll hear directly from local candidates running for office in the Washoe County Commission, Reno City Council, and Sparks City Council. This is a great opportunity to engage with candidates and learn more about their plans to address the issues that matter most in our community. So again, it's the We Will Vote Candidate Forum, Friday, October 11th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Bethel AME Church, 2655 Rock Boulevard. This is a nonpartisan event and is open and free to the public. There will be set speakers and questions prepared around housing, climate and clean energy, and more. Also today in the gathering room is our Reno Posse. They have food kits, very simple to put together, and you can participate with them in helping to feed our hungry neighbors. After service today, there is a transition team meeting here in the Great Room. Over the past year, our transition team has been gathering information on how our community views itself and what we hope for our future. But to transform this hope into reality, it will take time, community, and understanding. This 90-minute workshop aims to start that process by focusing on the transition team survey and what they have identified as most valuable and challenging ministry. This is an emergent and open-ended process with three goals: to have each participant leave with an understanding of what our shared responsibility over this community, of what they have to offer this community in meeting our collective needs, and how we can strengthen the vital ministry that membership is to UUFNN. So again, this is a report over a year's worth of work, so a lot of good information there. Please come and participate. And now, a climate note from Bill Miller.
Good morning. I'm Bill Miller, pronouns he, him, here to deliver a climate note. Today, I'm going to recite a poem I wrote in February, a climate grief poem. As many know, I'm deeply committed to climate action, not because I want to be, but because I have to be. My motivation is simple. The system was capable of saving itself by itself, it already would have. Well, the situation is changing, improving, not changing fast enough to avoid a cataclysmic future. There is hope, but without action, hope is nothing more than a drug, a tranquilizer, a mood enhancer. Inaction, that is the root of my grief. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to express it. There may be snow after petrol, but no one knows for certain. There may be birds and squirrels and bears, but no one knows for certain. After petrol, there may be nothing but pain and sorrow, misery, and slow, regretful dying. Everywhere. But no one knows for certain. For petrol is here, and it is large. We are small. Petrol runs the world, so we no longer walk or even remember. There may be life after petrol, but no one knows for certain. But there is life now, and that is certain. And we are here now, and that is certain. And we can act now, and that is certain. If we choose. Thank you.
And now, please rise as you are willing and able, and take a moment to greet one another. I will ring the singing bowl when it is time to gather once again.
Good morning. My name is Nathan Bakken. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the Director of Congregational Life here at UUFNN. And this year we are experimenting with a practice of thematic ministry. So each month we're going to be kind of diving deep into a specific topic, idea, value, word. And for October, our theme is heritage. And heritage, as Xiomara shared with us about 2 weeks ago, is about the traditions, the lineages, the people, the places, the land that we all come from, that we carry with us, that inform us as we show up to each and every day. To call us into this theme of heritage, I am going to open our service today with a quote by Adrienne Marie Brown. There is a saying that has been popular in the past few years: I am my ancestors' wildest dream. I love this idea, and I have put seeds in that soil. But there are also, in my lineage, ancestors for whom I am likely their worst nightmare. Adrienne Marie Brown is a Black, queer, pansexual, polyamorous, unmarried, childless, defiant feminist, post-capitalist earth lover, constantly thinking about what might be the most revolutionary next step she could take. She knows because there are ancestors who would feel like they had failed in their work because she exists. But she knows, which maybe these ancestors have some sense of now, is that the impulse to dominate, control, harm, and deny the truth of divergent human experiences is rooted in self-loathing. Adrienne Marie Brown has to honor that those ancestors lived in a time of less knowing, less connectedness, and less possibility. She has to honor that their lives are crucial to her calling. She passes her current experiences of freedom and delight backwards, back to the ancestors who did not have access to rest, agency. She passes her current experiences of self-love and radical self-acceptance and acceptance of the other backwards to her ancestors who thought they could only belong through some version of destruction of themselves and others. That nuanced approach to heritage, a heritage that tells the whole truth, is what carries us in this moment. And I'm going to invite Chris Pekars up to light our chalice, an action that is rooted in the heritage of Unitarian Universalism. Our chalice was created as a way to show victims of the Holocaust safe houses to escape to. It is not an ancient practice, but one that was created out of survival, a heritage that we carry forward. And so I read these words by the Reverend Audette Fulbright Folsom. This candle we light is set in the lamp of our history. Let us be worthy inheritors of this faith, and through our good works, pass it boldly to a new generation. And like a new generation, sometimes a new lighter works better. And in the light of our chalice, in the light of this heritage that brings us together in its complexity and its wholeness, I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me.
forgot to light my personal chalice. The story of the little oak tree. At the edge of the forest stood a large, fat toadstool. Next to him, there grew a spindly plant about the same height with 4 leaves. One day, the toadstool said to his companion, "Stay there. I've been watching you. How come when anyone kicks a toadstool, we all go to pieces, but when you get stepped on, you can straighten up again as good as new?" The little plant thought for a while. Then he answered, "I guess it's because I have something down underground called roots. They go down deep, and when I get stepped on, I just hang on tight with my roots until I'm all right again." "Well, that sounds like a neat idea," said the toadstool. "How do you go about getting these roots?" "Well," his friend said slowly, "it takes a long time. I've been growing mine for almost a year." "A year!" shouted the toadstool. "Who's got that kind of time? A whole year growing something you can't even see. They may be handy, but that's the silliest waste of time I've ever heard." And then he laughed and he laughed and he laughed. Finally, he said to his forest friend, "By the way, Skinny, when you finally got all your fancy roots growing down there, what do you expect to be?" The little plant seemed to straighten up and grow a little taller, and then he said, "Do you see that tallest oak standing strong against the winds on the hill? That's my mother, and someday I'm going to be as strong and tall just like her." I can imagine some of you out here have said, "We have to go to school every day of the week. Why do we have to go services on Sundays, right?" Here's the answer for you. Public school is concerned with what you know, all the things you need to be a good citizen. But here, we are concerned with how you use what you know, how you feel about yourself. We're trying to help you grow deep roots so that you won't be like a toadstool who falls apart at the least little kick. A deep faith is like the deep roots of the oak tree. It helps give us strength to weather the storms of life. We hope we can help you put down strong roots. That's what this congregation is for. The roots we are growing are invisible, but in time they will hold us firm and strong, like a great oak tree.
Last week we talked about mycelium. This week we're talking about roots. It's a very subterranean 2 weeks. And I want to invite us to take a moment as we practice this root work. Practice those pieces of us that are subterranean through a time that we call our moment or our meditation or our prayer for joys and sorrows. So I want to invite us as we gather to gather inside you all that you need to hold today. We know in this community that joy and sorrow are called to be held in one hand. And so I want to lift up the experiences of our community in this moment to let the folks of this community know that we see them, we hear them, we hold them. We hold Pat Francis as she holds her neighbors having to find new homes because UNR bought the land. We hold Dennis Conley, who holds Skip Pepin, his brother-in-law, who's in the hospital fighting cancer that has spread. come together with Bill Miller, who's holding Janet Nelson, as Al Nelson is starting chemotherapy tomorrow. Kind thoughts and prayers are appreciated. We hold Pam Gormley, her grandson, Quinn, got a concussion last Friday. He's had one a year. He plays football for Reno High, and so he'll only play the last 2 games of the season mid-late October. It's his senior year of high school. And as we take a moment to just realize our community has things that need to be held, things that need to be honored, supported. We know, just as we rest and hold our beloveds, we celebrate with them too. Jennifer Cochran is lifting up Jane Dunn, for she is grateful for Jane, a warm, giving spirit. And I can speak on behalf of this community that we are all blessed to know and celebrate her. And so I want to invite you in this moment to reconnect with your seat, your chair. Feel your feet placed firmly on the ground. Lean back into your chair. And we're just going to hold a moment of silence for whatever our hearts need to offer us this morning. And in that silence, may we find a connection to our roots and know that our roots reach out and link with those sitting around us, that we all weather the storms together. Amen, and blessed be, and namaste. Before I jump into my sermon this morning, I want to invite us to just stretch, move your body in a way that feels good to you. Whatever a stretch needs to be for you today, maybe it's shimming your shoulders, maybe it's standing up, moving your neck. We have bodies, and I'm going to be talking a lot. To open our moment of reflection today, I want to read a poem by June Jordan. The title of this poem is A Poem for South African Women. Our own shadows disappear as feet of thousands by the 10,000s pound the fallow land into new dust, that rising like a marvelous pollen will be fertile, even as the first woman, whispering imagination to the trees around her, made for righteous fruit. From such deliberate defense of life as no other still will claim inferior to any other safety in the world. The whispers, too, they intimate to the inmost ear of every spirit now aroused, they, carousing in ferocious affirmation of all peaceable and loving amplitude, sound, a certainly unbounded heat from a baptismal smoke where, yes, there will be fire. And the babies cease alarm as mothers raising arms and heart high as the stars so far unseen, nevertheless hurl into the universe a moving force, irreversible as light years, traveling to the open eye. And who will join this standing up? And the ones who stood without sweet company will sing and sing back into the mountains, and if necessary, even under the sea. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the ones we have been waiting for. I am someone who loves a good TV show. Recently, I've been watching a show on Disney Plus titled Agatha All Along, a show that follows a powerless witch named Agatha as she gathers a coven of misfits to travel down the witch's road so she and her coven might reclaim the power that has been taken away from them. In the show, the witch's road is one part mythology, one part hopeless dream, and one part their last resort. It is not a safe road to travel. It is a story seemingly known to each witch in this world, and it's an aspect of their heritage. What I love about this show is that while the road has a legacy, a mythology, even a really good song modeled after Stevie Nicks, the story that is known to all. And each step they take on the road ushers them into a deeper, unknown situation. And at each unknown encounter, they must rely on one another, listen to one another, center each other's talents and skills to overcome the trials and tribulations, just so they can take one more step forward, one more step to achieve their goal. They do not do it gracefully. There is bickering, refusal, fear, and the crisis in every episode has to hit a breaking point in order for everyone in the coven to find the courage to work together to overcome it. We are a lot like Agatha and her coven at times. While we are not a coven walking down a twisted path, we are a community that each day is coming together to walk into an unknown future. When I was hired in the August of 2022, one of the first things I was invited to by Lois Bianchi was to have tea at Betty and Jim Holz's house. I remember sitting in Betty's living room, hearing the stories of how this place was created. 65 years ago, a group of people with shared values and ideas about the world came together with the support of the Unitarian Fellowship movement and sowed the seed of community in a living room. And a few years later, they felt like they had made a mistake and were fearful that this was not going to work out in their favor. So they reached out to UU leadership, who turned to them and said, "You have an RE program and like a couple $1,000s in your bank. You're doing great." This leadership encouraged them to keep going. I've thought about that moment a lot in the last 2 years. That moment where fear and anxiety of we don't know what we're doing and we all kind of fake it till we make it, that we don't know exactly how to make this thing called Unitarian Universalist community happen, we have encouragement to keep going. I know I have. And I know our community 65 years ago did too, because they did. They kept going. Those early days of UUFNN did not have a minister, a building, a music program. They met in living rooms, in community center lobbies, in school cafeterias. Eventually, over time, the community purchased this property. And as it's been told to me, there were no trees, there were no gardens, there was no lawn, there was no solar array. It was sagebrush and seasonal wetlands that they did not realize, but they had to dig a bigger foundation for that little house. But together, they built up their their religious ed programs and the music program. They built this building. They hired a minister. And by 2002, UUFNN looked pretty similar to what we have today. A lot of blood, sweat, tears, laughter, and love and joy went into the creation of this beloved community. The roots of this place go deep and are nourished by all of those who came before us. One of my favorite practices and privileges of being a staff person who spends a lot of time in this building is at least once a week, I walk our memorial labyrinth, which is just through those back doors where there's that tree in the middle. And you can see names of people who I have no idea who they are. But I know people here know who they are. The labyrinth is a practice of walking not because you don't know where you're going. That's a very simple labyrinth. It takes about 3 minutes. But the unknown in the practice is what arises in you as you walk it. And we find ourselves once again entering into unknown territory. For those of you who are visiting for the first time, I want to invite you to hold the question, how do I navigate change in community? For those of us who are friends, members, longtime visitors, folks who just got their name badges today, or folks who have had their name badges since they were meeting in that little building over there, I want to invite you to hold the question, how do I navigate change in this community? As much as we love to sing hymns that refrain to us, don't be afraid of some change, don't be afraid of some change, sometimes change is scary. Sometimes change doesn't feel fair or kind or good. Sometimes change triggers moments within ourselves where where things were changed outside of our control, where we watch things change, and when we tried to express our voices, we were ignored, silenced, or excluded from the conversation. We are imperfect people on imperfect paths, doing imperfect work of building a beloved, imperfect community. In July of this year, I stepped into my new role, and in doing so, I have been in a lot of conversations with a lot of members of this community. Oftentimes, those conversations open up with deep concern for me. Fear that I will get burnt out, fear that I have too much on my plate, concern that they want to make sure that I should feel supported in this moment. And I'm grateful for the concern. And what I also hear in those statements, and it might be a reflection of myself, is what I hear beneath the surface is, I don't want you to leave too. And often in those same conversations, I hear stories like, I want to help, but I can't. I have a lot going on, I don't have the time, but I want to support you. I love this place, but so-and-so was rude to me, so I can't come back here. I'm tired, but if no one steps up to take this over, I will keep doing it. I can't stop, because if I don't do this, no one will. You're doing it wrong. Just let me do it because I know the right way. And my personal favorite I love this community, but I am afraid that the fact that we don't have a thriving RE program, a music director, a caring committee, a structured pathway to membership, or a full-time minister. Also, did you know that e-news has a broken link? Our technology doesn't always work on Sunday mornings, and we need to make sure we have a leader at every protest and city council meeting, and if we don't get everything fixed, this community will die. And from that applause, I have a feeling you've heard that story too. I want to invite you all to breathe for a moment in that laughter. What I just said is a lot. It is a lot for one person to hold. It is a lot for a community to hold. Dean Spade, a trans legal scholar and activist, offers my favorite definition of burnout. Dean writes, burnout is the combination of resentment, exhaustion, shame, and frustration that makes us lose connection to pleasure and passion in the work and instead encounter difficult feelings like avoidance, compulsion, control, and anxiety. I'm going to read that again. Burnout is the combination of resentment, exhaustion, shame, and frustration that makes us lose connection to pleasure and passion in the work and instead encounter difficult feelings like avoidance, compulsion, control, or anxiety. You're doing it wrong. Just let me do it because I know the right way. I have a lot going on. I don't have the time to help, but I want to make sure you're supported. I can't stop because if I take a break and I don't do this, no one will. Those are all statements of burnout. It is not just being tired. It's more than that. It's not just about not having the energy to do the work that is community. Burnout is fueled by refusing to rely on one another. Resentment, shame, frustration, and exhaustion are internal personal experiences. They can be summarized in I statements that work to disconnect us from ourselves and from one another. And they do so, and they do so from a place of deep fear that we all have to do it on our own. Overcoming burnout, which is always easier said than done. I feel that way too when I have to overcome burnout. Is that overcoming that shame, that resentment, that exhaustion requires us to be vulnerable and deeply and intentionally gentle with ourselves and with one another. It means we have to slow down, do the deeper work of actively listening to one another. Actively listening. Someone's actively listening. It means asking ourselves, do I have the capacity to do this task? And if the answer is no, do I have the capacity to say it? And we just got a really good example, so thank you. Because oftentimes children know that things that we forget, that it is okay to say no. It is okay to express that, hey, Nathan's talking a lot. But I want to bring us back to this invitation that to overcome this feeling of disconnection, we have to be vulnerable and honest about, can we actually do the task? And if the answer is yes, do you have the capacity to follow through? I've learned rather quickly for myself, I am someone who will say yes because I did a lot of improv in college and because it oftentimes is the path of least resistance. And when I get overwhelmed, the first thing that goes out of my toolbox is my ability to communicate effectively. Being honest with ourselves and how we are feeling, checking in with one another, not for the purpose of trying to gauge if someone else has the capacity to do the work we don't want to do, but from a place of genuinely wanting to know how they are doing. It means delegating tasks when they seem impossible, taking the risk of trust. I am still practicing that practice. It means saying sorry to ourselves and to other people when we slip up. It means we need to remind ourselves that we have people in our lives that we trust and who we can rely on. And when the voice gets really loud that says nobody is here that I can trust, invite yourself to meet that voice with grace and curiosity and kindness. And ask yourself, is that really true? And if it is really true, talk to Nathan, because Nathan needs to have some hard conversations with some folks. Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal religion. This means that we are a religion that is connected through shared relationship and commitment, not through shared belief or doctrine. A covenant is an agreement designed to support us in building community with one another. And when you walked in this morning, I gave, hopefully almost all of you, I did not expect this many people to be here, I gave you a copy of our covenant. And I forgot to grab one for myself, but that's fine. Oh, this is great. I got two now. This document is the purpose, the hope, the dream, the aspiration of why we are here today. Like Chris's story about nourishing our roots in order to weather storms, this is a document that we can turn to in moments of great change to remind ourselves, are we doing this work well? I want to point out a couple things about this document. The first is that in UUFNN's covenant, we are connected through aspiration. The opening line is, we aspire to. What brings us into relationship with one another is not the perfection created by following every rule to the T. What brings us into relationship is the shared and generous assumption that we are all aspiring to try our best to live into this community. We do not do that perfectly, and I know that to be true firsthand. We come to this community as ourselves with all of the self stuff we carry, knowing and hoping and hopefully getting to the point of trust that this community can hold all of our stuff well to support us as we aspire to live into what this community aspires to be. Aspiration rather than prescription invites us into the unknown of our future. We do not lay out how to live these aspirations. There is not a how-to manual on building a democratic community that is based on trust, transparency, and open communication. I did not get that in my onboarding when I got hired. That is something we have to learn by doing and failing and trying again. We live into our tradition as Unitarian Universalists and trust one another to figure it out in the process. When we experience change, transition, or hardship, this covenant should be the first document we turn to guide us through the experience. Not because it is going to give us an answer, or $100,000, or a perfect settled minister, or the ideal way to communicate, but because it is going to guide us into the right questions. What do we need to build? Who do we need to become? How do we need to grow to live out this relationship together well? It invites us to be citizens of this community rather than consumers of it. Covenantal religion means that no minister is going to solve all our problems, because we are the ones who are here. And I want to bring us back to the poem I used to open this sermon. When June Jordan wrote her poem for South African Women, she wrote it in 1978 for the commemoration of a woman-led protest in South Africa in 1956, where 40,000 women and children came together against apartheid. She wrote of the courage, trust, and love that guided these women against a violent regime into the unknown of a future that dared to imagine a world without apartheid. She wrote, "Who will join this standing up? The ones who stood without sweet company, and will sing and sing back into the mountains, and if necessary, even under the sea. We are the ones we have been waiting for." Who will join? Who will dare to make a promise with their body to an unknown future, not because there is a single leader who has all the answers, but because there is a community striving and aspiring to trust one another enough to dare to bring the future into the present, to be the ones worth waiting for. In the end of August, the Board of Trustees and I held a day-long retreat facilitated by Kristen Famila, Reverend Dr. Sam Wilson, and Marina McGregor. The focus of this retreat was about planning and visioning for the future of UUFNN, but through a model that slowed us down, fostered connection between us, offered insight, invited us to play and imagine. The final activity of this retreat was to create our future worlds, not with words or big ideas or a graduate thesis, but with toys and figurines in baking trays filled with live compost. It is as absurd as it sounds. We each took the time to build our hope for UUFNN. And during our show and tells of our worlds, our board president, Nancy Oakley, realized that she had placed a toy figurine of a giraffe in her compost. And at the time, she said, "I don't really know why I grabbed it, but it's here." A little later, while we were debriefing, Nancy shared, "I think I realized what the giraffe is. It's the unknown, the uncertainty, the unexpected that we need to take into consideration and make sure we have enough room to welcome. I think I love my little giraffe." While finding a revelation in a toy plastic giraffe might sound silly, the giraffe has become a grounding image for our board in planning this year. What does it mean to take the giraffe into consideration? To plan knowing we do not and will not have everything figured out, but by doing it together to meet the needs of whatever the giraffe asks of us, we know that we do it together. It became really easy in that moment to say, "I love the giraffe," or to better translate, I love the unknown. I love uncertainty. Because all that is required of us in our authentic, imperfect, gentle response to meet it, all that is required is consideration and care. As we look back to the roots of this community, they were the ones we were waiting for. And they were the ones they were waiting for. 65 years ago, planting the seeds into unknown soil, unsure how their roots will develop and what fruit will be born, they could not imagine us. So they chose to imagine themselves. When I return to the questions that are asked of me almost every week, one really sticks out. How do I feel about this upcoming year, knowing that I am the only full-time employee of this establishment? And it's been hard for me to answer authentically because I'm meeting people with fear, grief, anxiety, burnout, exhaustion. And what does it mean if I look at them and say, I am so excited. I have never felt more energized in my work. I have never felt more optimistic of this place and what this place can serve the larger Northern Nevada community. I am hopeful in a way that I have not been in the 2 years I have worked here. And you want to know why? Because in the first time in 2 years, I am not alone in doing this work. I am not alone in my dreaming. I am not alone in my acting. And I'm realizing there might be a reality for some of us that we still feel alone. This hope that I feel is not a naive hope. It is not a hope that pretends this will not be hard work. It is not a hope that I believe is my responsibility alone. It is a hope I experience because of the people I work with on a daily and weekly basis here. People that you call community. Just as our leadership 65 years ago were tasked to keep going, we too are faced with a great task. A task of great imagination. One that challenges us to step on the road of the unknown together. One that invites us to be gentle and kind and aware that burnout will happen and we are allowed to take breaks. A task that reminds us, in the spirit of our ancestors, of June Jordan, that we too are the ones we are waiting for. That we too are the ones we are waiting for. Amen and blessed be, and namaste.
Now is the time to share our bounty. There are a multitude of ways for you to give: check, cash, electronic. All of our giving options are on the screen behind me or in your Zoom session. Every month, we give a portion of our offerings to a community partner through the Share the Plate program, reflecting our mission to support good works beyond these walls and into our larger community. Our partner for October is the Washoe County Court-Appointed Special Advocates Program, or CASA. CASA is dedicated to the safety, well-being, and best interests of abused, neglected, and dependent children who are the subject of judicial proceedings and provides trained advocates to represent and speak for those children in court. CASA's staff oversees the volunteers that represent these children and provides funding for their recruitment, training, and support for their ongoing work. And now, let our offering begin. Please join Jane and myself in blessing our offerings. To the work of this fellowship, which is helping more people grow in love, faith, justice, and joy, we dedicate ourselves and these our offerings. Thank you for your generosity.
As we move into the closing of our service today, I want to remind folks of an announcement that Chris made at the beginning of our service. After our service today at 11:45, we will be meeting in this room for a circle process facilitated by myself and members of the board and the transition team to give focused conversation around active listening with regards to our membership here. Membership in the most broadest sense, not just the membership committee, not just the process to become a member, but your experiences of being a member, what you have to offer the strengthening of our membership, and what we can together move this community into a space where we all feel connected, grounded, heard. And so that way we all can come to a place where we believe that we are all the ones we've been waiting for. So I want to invite members, new, old, friends of the community who have been here a long time, to join us. There will be snacks provided. So I just want to remind folks, and it will be about 90 minutes. So go from 11:45 to roughly 1:15. So please come if you are able. I want to invite us to rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn. I'm going to shift the order a little bit, and I'll do the extinguishing of the chalice and the benediction together. So please rise as in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 348, Guide My Feet. Please remain standing in body or spirit for our benediction. And I invite, if you are comfortable, to hold hands with those around you. And if you would rather not, I invite you to place your hands over your heart and join us in spirit. As we recognize the light of our chalice is the light of our heritage, we know that in its extinguishing, the light does not go out. Rather, the light finds itself in each and every one of us. For as our worship has ended, our service may begin. Go in peace. Amen. Blessed be, and namaste. Thank you.